Yes, it's Wednesday, December the 3rd, 2025, and it's a uniquely special day because today is my son's birthday. Oluwamurewa, happy birthday to you. You don't believe I forgot all about it.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, I remember now. Anyway, aside the celebration, we are now 9 days into the 16 days of activism. Today, we're turning our attention to a growing and unsettling reality. There is a new frontier in gender-based violence. Because for years, GBV was something we talked about in terms of physical harm, emotional abuse, or domestic situations. But now, a different kind of violence is emerging. One that happens through our phones, our social media platforms, our digital footprints. Technology-facilitated gender-based violence is reshaping the way abuse is carried out. From online harassment to deepfake images, from cyberstalking to non-consensual sharing of intimate content, the battlefield has shifted. The violence may look different, but the impact is just as devastating. We have a guest on standby today to help us understand this new wave of harm, why it targets women and girls so aggressively, and what it means for safety, privacy, and justice in a digital age. This conversation isn't just timely, it is necessary. But first.
Yes, but first, some respite is coming the way of commuters in the Lekki Aja access. Lolo, let me finish. The Lagos government has announced that contractors handling the rehabilitation of the Eti-Osa Lekki Epe Expressway from Admiralty Way Junction to the Aja Jubilee Bridge will vacate the site on Thursday, December 4th, 2025, and resume the second phase of the project by mid-January 2026. The announcement was issued in a statement from the Lagos state government on Tuesday. According to the government, the temporary halt is aimed at easing traffic congestion, reducing travel time, and allowing residents and commuters to move freely during the Yuletide period, saving valuable man-hours and reducing stress for motorists. The government also said the pause will help ease traffic gridlock caused by the rehabilitation works, save important man-hours, and allow residents to commune seamlessly during the festive period. Before Lolo reacts, let's see if we have some reactions to that. There's dancing on the table here. Everybody warned you before you started this rubbish. I honestly don't know how you guys in power think. Literally everybody said the timing was absolutely wrong. But no, you decided to be the thorn in our flesh. Shame on you. Wow. Lagosians are angry. Why not just have them work overnight and provide them with enough security? Shifting the inconvenience to January doesn't make sense. There might be some equipment issues to that. This is great news. I had to turn back to work from home yesterday. One of the worst traffic I've had to endure in Lagos. So why wasn't this thought of before? Why isn't always after the commotion that people decide to put on their thinking caps? I mean, as if Lagos traffic isn't bad on a regular day, you decide to close a major route during December of all periods, makes no sense. Creates a problem, let people suffer small, then proffer solutions to the problem, then hailed as a listening government. Works like magic. And I wanted to say something about that, and I'll still say it.
Oh my.
All right, so those are the reactions we have. Lolo, we'll give you the honor of first reaction. See the dance. Hey! You look like that dancing baby that used to be.
Oh my
that used
God.
to trend on social media.
You know, it's just unfortunate that, you know, we had to shout and cry for something that could have been thought about before. There are so many ways to do this. At first they said, oh, we're going to do it just from the Aja axis and we'll leave the rest. But all of a sudden we saw it stretch from Aja all the way to Agugi. And you're like, but you said they were going to do this thing in tranches. It's just, yesterday was hell. Do you know when I got to, when there was no traffic this morning? I'm not even lying. We literally slowed down. The bus slowed down to look. Now what's going on?
Happened.
Why is there no traffic then? Oh, we now said, oh, I think they opened the coastal road.
Yeah.
So people were able to like maybe divert over there. I just wish that this government would sit down, count the cost of everything. She even Bible talk and say before a man will build the house, You will sit down and count the cost. You don't have to wait until people's lives are hanging in the balance before you do the right thing. See what they've done now. Everybody will now start praising them. Oh, thank you so much for listening.
But I'm happy people are not praising them, because I like that tweet the guy said, make the problem, proffer solution, then solve it. Because it just seems like that statement felt like they were expecting a round of applause from Lagosians. And we cannot give you a round of applause.
No.
There was a circular that was sent out when the first noise about this rehabilitation happening in December came out. And you shared it 18th of November 2025, and the Lagos State government, there it is, wishes to inform the public that the planned rehabilitation works, earlier scheduled to commence on Saturday the 15th of November, had been postponed to a later date. A new commencement date would be communicated in due course, only for our staff to wake up and this jam traffic one day. So not only did you not communicate a new date, you just showed up on site with people there. You agreed for the contractors to show up on site. But this also shows you to be a government that's not even serious. We can't hold your word. You say something and then we see you do something else.
This has actually become a pattern. You know, they create that problem and then they solve it and expect it to be all right.
They didn't solve it.
Well, they did something about it today.
Remember
I saw you this morning and I was excited. I was like, oh my goodness,
did you see that my countenance was better? I felt,
oh no, yesterday Mama was snappy.
No, I had to be thinking of maybe I need to get like maybe a smaller place on the mainland and leave the house in Aja. You cannot continue to do this. You need to see how many people were walking. I saw coppers. You know, many of them, it's the end of the month, they're supposed to have their
clearance and
clearance. They were on the road, people's children sweating. I even saw a woman in her office. I wish I had taken a picture. She wore sneakers. So maybe she had already prepared her mind that, oh, I don't know how long I'm going to walk.
Exactly like the children
and she had her bag on her hand. And, you know, everybody was just prepared. We cannot continue to make the lives of people so
difficult. And I need to make this point, because Lagos announced the traffic diversion and it talked about the fact that this road work is expected to take 8 months. Lagos has seen what this small few days has cost. I hope that people in Lagos government are sitting at a table and trying to figure out what they're going to do when phase 2 and the remainder of the months, because they barely did it 3-4 days. Let's just say when the 8 months really kicks in. What is the Lagos government's plan?
But Olu, there are so many. We can take a leaf from other places. There was a time I went to London, I can't lie. Do you know that the road to Heathrow was bad and they needed to maintain it? Do you know that that was when I saw that big floodlight before I saw it on Kule Afolayan set? I didn't even know such a massive light.
And they were working overnight. I've seen it.
I have seen it.
I saw it a lot during Tunde Fashion last time. There was a lot of overnight road work.
Oh my God. So they put it by 6. I was going to the airport, Tolu. They rounded off like 5:30. So they were working overnight. So that during the day, you can freely commute.
But that was an idea. That was an option. You know, let them work overnight.
They can still continue this work. Let them continue it from Aja and do it slowly. Maybe at night, let them work.
But the problem with that, because there was one tweet I wanted to respond to. The problem with that is, even if they're working overnight,
they will have to section
places off, and they still have to have these huge equipments, these huge land movers.
But there'll be fewer cars on the road.
Still on the road. Yeah. So you may still not have access to all of the road the way you expect.
But there'll be fewer cars. They are doing it in tranches, just like they communicated before. Do you know you'd have prepared yourself that, okay, I'm going to face traffic just from Chevron and it will end there and I can have free flowing going forward. You can decide to even come earlier. Even this one you're saying, they've not moved all the road demarcations yet.
But it has already changed something
it changed something because there was no equipment on the road working this morning. And so everybody were able to just maneuver and, you know, the road spread out a little bit.
And I also hope they can quickly do some remedial work. You talked about I think a back road around Chevron.
Yes.
I will pass somewhere and there's a pothole. The next day I pass, they filled it. So I know it's possible. I know they do it overnight. So Lagos State, this is also a call for you. The places you know that will face heavy influx of traffic because of this road work when it starts, quickly do remedial work now. So that work is done and people already have it frees the flow of the traffic when the road work.
And you know that there are many
delayed. Yes, Lola, you're only delaying the evil day.
Yes, so
okay.
I know. You know there are many gated estates around across.
That already claims road.
We need to seriously think the road network in Lagos, because there are so many gated estates that actually can be a pathway to pass if everything is properly planned.
Yeah.
I passed some of these estates to learn. I'm wondering that who are the people buying these houses? No, gutters. So I looked at the area. I'm like, there is always water there in the middle of the road, because there is no way for the water to go. And if you look at people's walls, you can see that the water, because he has nowhere it's going, he's soaking through. There is no way that these walls will not come down eventually. So I'm thinking that we need to continually rethink Lagos, because we cannot just keep slapping a band-aid on an open wound that is not healing. It just works for a little while.
Sorry to kill your buzz.
He opens again.
Her buzz.
I want to kill her buzz a bit. But what if, you know, the whole thing, the whole repairs stopping tomorrow doesn't work, and the contractors say, they have to
we have
go
a
ahead.
contract and we have a deadline.
We have to go ahead. We have a deadline. What happens then?
I pack out.
I we started looking for her yesterday. Let's take a break.
All right, now when we come back, we're diving into this new digital front line of gender-based violence, how it works, who it targets, and why Africa urgently needs stronger protections in our online spaces. We'll break down the rise of technology-facilitated GBV and what must change to keep women and girls safe. Joining us is Anita Igbine, investigative data analyst. Stay with us.
Today, we're tackling a growing and deeply troubling dimension of gender-based violence. The violence that doesn't always leave bruises, but leaves scars nonetheless. We're talking about technology-facilitated gender-based violence, or TFGB, GBV, the online digital tech-enabled abuse that targets people, mostly women and girls, simply because of their gender. As the world moves more of our lives online through social media, chat apps, image-sharing platforms, and live streams, abusers are finding newer, faster, more dangerous ways to attack. From deepfake smear campaigns, non-consensual sharing of intimate images, cyberstalking, doxing, and sextortion, the digital space has become a battlefield, and the statistics are chilling. Globally, studies show a significant proportion of women are targeted by online violence. Many survivors report psychological trauma, reputational damage, and fear that keeps them off social media or silenced online. As we look at clicks, control, and harm, the rise of technology-facilitated GBV, let's examine how TFGBV operates, who it targets, and what it means for safety, privacy, and justice. We'll also look at how legally, socially, and institutionally we can protect people from these digital harms. Joining us for this important conversation is Anita Igbine. She's a senior investigative data analyst. Anita, welcome to Jasiri.
Thank you so much, Olope, for inviting me to the show today.
Thank you.
Well, Anita, this is probably the first time, you know, that a lot of people are hearing the term technology-facilitated gender-based violence. And let's start by defining and unpacking it. What does it mean when we talk about technology-facilitated gender-based violence? And why is it, you know, more than just online harassment?
Okay, so before I start with the definition, I would like to also say happy birthday to Omotunde's son.
Oh, thank you.
So happy birthday to your son.
Thank you.
It's good to be here with you ladies, to Lope and Dashan also. So to define TFGBV, I'm going to use the United Nations Populations Fund definition because I think it's quite and fully encompassing. And they define TFGBV as an act of violence. So it can be committed by one person or a group of persons. But what makes it different from normal gender-based violence is that it is committed, it is assisted, aggravated or amplified either in part or in whole by technological tools. So that means our digital communication tools and also our digital media against a person because of their gender. So what makes it different from just our typical online harassment is that it is gendered. So we're seeing increasingly women and young girls and gender diverse people being attacked online in online spaces. And also, while it may be partially or fully committed online, the effects do not stay online. As you mentioned earlier, the effects may not be seen, but you have like psychological harm being done to the victims. And yes, so that's like a very brief definition of what TFGBV is.
All right. Thank you, Anita, for defining it for us. Let's just move on, because now, what are the most common forms of TFGBV today in Africa and globally? Because we have to know what it looks like, at least so that when people think of TFGBV, they know exactly what it can be when it is, done to them.
Okay. So I would start with the most common one, which is the sharing of deepfake media or nude images of females or young ladies. So this is common because with the advent of generative AI, it's easier to do. We also have doxing, where you release people's personal information like their phone numbers, their house addresses online. We have sextortion. And sextortion is where you collect money from people based on you have some incriminating evidence against them, or you've even created these evidences against them, but then you're using that to blackmail them for money. And then in a way that is not so obvious, we also have impersonation. On social media now, anyone can create an account. They can use your likeness, your image to create the accounts. So that in itself is also a form of technology-facilitated gender-based violence. And then we have the trolling, we have hacking. Yes, so that's also a form of technology-facilitated gender-based violence.
So it's interesting you talk about this, because in recent times, I know that
some examples.
Yes, in recent times, I know that Star, as well as, I believe, Bloody Civilian, have been two very high-profile Nigerian women, young women, who have found themselves the subject, or rather the victims of TFGBV. And that leads me to ask, why are women and girls seemingly most disproportionately affected or targeted when it comes to TFGBV? And what are the societal or structural gender norms that you think probably enable women and girls to unfortunately wear a target online?
So I would say that TFGBV is not different from traditional gender-based violence. It's just that this has moved online. So already we have a patriarchal society where we see there's power imbalances between men and women, and also there's the need for women to be silenced, right? And this is the offline power dynamic that we see being moved online. So women are seen as controllable, and you should not really be talking too much online when men are talking, right? So that's one of the reasons that we see. So it's not invented, it's just a movement we see from offline to online. We also see that sometimes the people who are being attacked, they are prominent women. You've mentioned Eti-Osa, you've mentioned Bloody Civilian. But we also have women who are in politics. We have women who speak on current issues such as feminism, sexuality as a whole, and human rights, who are kind of attacked as a punishment to put them in their place, right? So that's why we increasingly see women being attacked. It's not new, it's just a new dimension. Well, there's a lot of new there.
Yeah.
And then we say the cultural norms that enable these structural cultural norms. So we already have, like I said, we have a patriarchal society, but we also have weak and outdated laws that do not view online threats really as anything serious. It's a minor issue. You hear people say, so why don't you just disconnect online? But disconnecting does not provide any safety, but rather it's exclusion. You're excluding women's voices from these spaces, okay? And then we also have technology tools that are not built with, when they are built, they're not being thought out fully in the terms of how they can be used as tools of abuse. We've seen this not only affecting women, but also children, where we see children games it's an afterthought that safety measures are being put in to say, okay, how do we protect children from abuse like grooming? So these are some of the structural factors that enable this environment. But we also have the fact that women and girls have been sexualized and objectified. And so you see this, the normal sexualization we see on the streets, it's now being just fully for everyone to see now online.
No, okay, Anita, but do we have data or even research on how widespread this TFGBV is in Nigeria, across the continent, and even globally? What do those numbers tell us about the scale and the risk?
So I would say that the data is not up to date, right? And I like to draw data from like UN sources where there are more global data, and then we also look at some Nigerian sources. So globally, it's not only Nigeria or Africa that we see this trend. According to UNDP, in Arab states, you have 60% of women who have experienced some form of violence online. And you have Eastern Europe, Central Asia, about 50%. But in sub-Saharan Africa, we have about 28%. I would like to say that the number is probably underreported, just the same as, gender-based violence. But then also, when we talk about deepfake, we find out that about 90 to 95% of online deepfake are made of women. They are sexual images of women. So I'm getting this from the UN Women Africa websites, okay, in case anyone wants to also go through. There's good resources from UN, and I can maybe drop some of them at the end of the conversation. And then that same source also says about 42% of female African parliamentarians, right, have received some sort of death threat, even rape threats, or just normal threats, just because they are vocal online, right? So what this says is that it's widespread, one. Two, it doesn't affect just a particular group of women, as people might like to say that maybe it's because you're online so much, or just people like make excuses, but it affects women across all ages and class, as we've seen. And then also, like I mentioned, data is probably underreported. So the real true number would probably be much larger than what we have right now.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. Before we go to the next question, Anita, we're saying some of these terms and not a lot of people are familiar with them. I think sextortion is almost self-explanatory. We've had the hacking, online violence, doxing. I think we just need to explain a little bit more, because especially in our context, these are not issues that we come across most often. So let's just talk a bit about doxing, how it's affecting women and girls, and particularly the deep fakes, because a number of the reports I'm reading concerning deep fakes, women and children are the victims. They're using children's likenesses to create these horrifying sexual videos. And so I think we need to really let people understand, particularly for the doxing and the deep fakes, and some of like the primary ones in the language that we're using. So we carry the audience along.
Okay. So doxing is the illegal, in most times, illegal sharing of personal information of a person. So doxing can be when you release people's phone numbers, their personal phone numbers online. Obviously, if someone is in a public office and you release the public office number, that's a different case than you release their private number that you got maybe as due to your proximity to them, right? And then doxing also includes releasing people's information, like their address. That's also, you can imagine the safety, security risks that poses to the person, because if you're receiving death threats and your address is being shared online, you would have to leave where you live. You have to move away from where you live, either temporarily or permanently. And then even your workplace is being shared online. People are sending messages to your workplace also, so that could affect your career. and your employability. And if you even talk about now that people are trying to build personal brands, if such information about you is online in terms of deepfake, a video about you that is completely false, right? Deepfake is falsified images or videos created through the use of AI, so AI tools, right? An example of an AI tool is Grok, for an example. And then, like you mentioned, it can also be used for children, where you have CSAM, which is child sexual abuse material, where you're using either chatbots to create this content for, I cannot say for reasons, really.
Yes.
People have different reasons why they do that. So those are just some explanation of the terms we've been using and how they affect people.
Thank you so much, Anita, because we need to make some of this clarification and real definition so that a lot of people can gain knowledge, because this is a new concept that we're talking about. You know, people tend to dismiss online violence and just say, oh, it's just the internet. But, you know, from your research, what are the real psychological, professional, social consequences that these attacks on women? But before you answer that, we'll go for a quick break. When we return, you'll be able to help us answer this last question. We'll be back. Thank you for staying with us. Of course, we're discussing this very new and, well, I would say, I almost said interesting concept. We're talking about technologically, you know, facilitated gender-based violence. And we have Anita with us, who was sharing her knowledge with us. Thank you very much, Anita, for staying with us. Before our break, I was about to talk about what are the real, you know, impacts, I mean psychological, professional, social consequences that these things have, these affects women, because they're the ones that they are targeting. So how do these deeply affect women especially?
Okay, so I'll start with psychological. So psychologically, you can imagine having an image of yourself, doctored image, even if it's a real image of yourself, being shared online, for example, in the case of revenge porn. So this causes anxiety, depression, and hypervigilance. So you're scared now to even use your own devices. When you receive notifications, it's like you're about to relieve the trauma again. And professional, I touched a bit about professional before the break. I'll quickly go through it. So having such content about yourself being put online, imagine a deepfake tape being put online, it affects your employability, especially because we live in a traditional, Nigeria, we tend to be more traditional, more conservative, more patriarchal society, right? So already that's a reputational damage. And the problem with TFGBV is that it always falls on the victim to defend themselves. And most times the attention is on the victim, right? You barely see people going for who the perpetrator is. And I think that's the same thing also when you have gender-based violence, truly. So we also have, I mentioned, affecting personal brands. Your personal brand is affected. For people who work in more public spaces like politicians, journalists, it can lead to censorship, right?
Yeah.
And it also leads to them, they don't want to take part in politics. They don't want to take part in some discussions. So you're basically removing women's voices, which we need, from public spaces, right? Then when we talk about social and civic, we have less participation in democratic processes. We have less expert leaders who want to give their opinions in public. Yes. And safety, cyber threats can become very real. Death threats can quickly progress offline. And you see people having to, like I mentioned, change their address, change schools, change workplaces, change phone numbers. And these are not easy processes just to say, oh, you can change your number. For a lot of us Nigerians, we have our number linked to our NIN, it's linked to your bank, it's linked to different processes. And once you change your number, you have to go and relink those, right? So that's another whole process that you have to do on your end as a victim. So saying it's just the internet, it's just the way you silence women and you're going to remove attention from the real harm that these women face.
Okay.
Wow.
Now, Anita, do you mind telling us how technology platforms, social media apps, AI tools, which a lot of people seem to think is causing more harm than good now, are contributing or even failing to prevent TFGBV? What responsibilities do platforms, social media, AI tools bear on this?
So, for social media tools, and not just social media, when we talk about generative AI, there is a low minimum requirement, like for you to use these tools, because people are trying to gain market share. So they make these tools free. You have like a free trial you can use. They make it very accessible. It's very easy to use. And then many platforms are built engagement first, and then they think safety later. So it's given, that's why you have outrageous things tend to trend like quicker, faster than even the truth. We always say, before the truth wears its shoes, the lie has made its way
around the world. Yeah.
So that's the same thing here, because platforms reward engagement. So you see that people even engage in these things just for the money that they will get at the end of the month from these platforms. And that's why these platforms have a responsibility, because when you create a platform, you should make sure that you have safety in mind from the beginning. Safety for women, girls, children, and everyone who uses the platforms. Okay? So you should design for that risk in mind and not design it as an afterthought.
Yeah.
So they can...
Go ahead, Anita, finish your thought.
No, I'm saying they can definitely also, especially for like Africa, when you're creating resources, because you often see they'll be like, okay, click here for more resources. Those resources should be more localized for people so that they can actually get to resources that can help them based on their location and not just general resources.
So I want to stay with these apps because you mentioned Grok, and I've seen a number of things that young men, boys online have asked Grok to do. Occasionally Grok seems to answer and sometimes Grok doesn't. And again, I'm not sure if it was Grok that was used in the situation with Star. I also have to point out, as a lot of people did, there was never really a statement from Maven Records supporting her or even calling for demanding accountability. The person who was involved, his account was banned, was removed, but it just means he can come back with another account and do it all over again. And that same account was notorious from actually doing it to other young girls and women before he attempted to do it to Star. So I think there's a point there. But some of these platforms claim they can't detect when their tools are being misused. Is this more of an escape, an excuse for a lack of accountability? Because as you said, they seem to be prioritizing engagement and money at the end of the day. And if that's the situation, are tech platforms genuinely unable to curb these abuses, or have they simply deprioritized the safety of women and girls online? And what do you think? We're just not a priority, even though we tend to be half. Maybe not half, but we're part of the people who use them. But I think there's this whole conversation around how young boys and men and the manosphere are the ones who are really driving tech engagements right now. So they're looking to engage them any which way they can. But is it a situation in which they cannot detect when their AI or their tools are being misused, or they simply just don't care?
To be honest, it can be partly true because you have local context. So sometimes, especially in the African context, the vernacular we use, the languages, these applications are not well equipped to, detect when people are using, the languages or even being satirical. and then act in the African sense. But we also know that these platforms, they have very sophisticated spam copyrights, in fact, advertising fraud techniques right now that can, whenever there's something that's actually going to affect their own revenue. Like you can post the content that is for a big company, and before you know it, your content is being taken down. Yeah. To give an example, YouTube. Copyright laws, or copyright cases, they are very quick to handle. So why is it in this case that it's now difficult for you to handle when these contents are up? Because even when the issue of Grok came up, right, I looked into that online. It took a day plus before Grok, they reined in Grok. So for people who are not aware what happened, around June, July, Grok was being used online to sexually harass women.
Yes.
Women would post pictures online and people would say, undress her, turn her around. And Grok was responding and doing these things before the platform. Grok is the AI tool for X, formerly Twitter. So before the platform reined it in, and then it stopped responding to those requests.
Yeah.
But there were still some slip-ups.
Exactly.
I won't lie, there were some slip-ups after. So for those who were keeping track, you would see that and that's why I say they think about, getting the thing out first. They want to have the best technological tools in the public, and then they think about safety as a second thought. And then we also know that currently for CSAM, right, child sexual abuse material, there's the hash matching technology, which makes it that you cannot re-upload that same type of content once it has been hashed. So this can also be done for deepfakes, because sometimes, and which is why victims tend to suffer for longer, the platform or whoever posted it, they can delete their accounts and then they come back either through the same account or a different account, and then they will share those contents. So with hash matching, we make sure that those contents cannot be reshared. So this is something that platforms are able to do.
Yeah.
So it's not that they are completely powerless. No, it's just that digital safety, particularly women's safety, have not been prioritized the same level as profits, right? So we acknowledge there's a technical difficulty, but that does not excuse them from their regulatory and their moral obligations.
Oh, thank you, Anita. So let's talk about some of the obstacles that victims face when they try to report digital abuse. We already know how it's like an uphill task for women when they want to report abuse generally, even offline. So now let's even talk about what happens when they want to report digital abuse or online. From lack of awareness to stigma, slow, interrupted platform responses, to legal or even institutional barriers. What are the blockades that they face?
So the blockade that they face is the fact that people trivialize online gender-based violence. As I mentioned before, people see it as it's just social media, so why are you taking it seriously, right? I remember I saw a post yesterday where someone insulted someone else's wife, used a derogatory word in Nigeria, right? And then he filed a legal suit against the person. And then people online are now coming to say, I don't see why you should do that. It's not that serious.
Wow.
It's because these terms, yeah. So the word being used, it was they called the person's wife an Olosho, right? So he took legal action, and someone is like, well, that's why I don't see why, because of this word, that should happen. Okay? So it's just a reflection of how we've always trivialized harm done to women and young girls. So it's not going to be any more different. But even when you do take legal action, people see it as you're overreacting, right? Yeah. Or you're just not mentally strong. So that's a barrier that people face. Then talking about now reporting it, when you do report it, there's always going to be the fact that you're responsible yourself collecting the evidence against you, the evidence of the harm being done against you, rather. So quickly when it happens, before they even delete, you have to collect that evidence and then take it to the police.
Yeah.
And then you have to hope that the police take this as a real threat, because that's another barrier that people face, where the police don't see this as a real threat, because if it's just a word or a slur being used, they're like, okay, so what's going on? And why should we, or on what mandate are we supposed to arrest this person on? That's another barrier.
Okay, so you talked about hashing earlier, but just very quickly, give me 3 policies or 3 things that you think platforms can implement immediately to stop or reduce technology-facilitated GBV. And there's a very specific question I have in relation to deepfake pornography. Do you think that should be explicitly criminalized?
So I will start with deepfake. I do believe that it should be explicitly criminalized on the basis of consent. People online tend to think that because you've shared a content online, it means that you've given express consent for anything to be done with that piece of media that you've shared. That is not true. Even in copyright, you can see that if we have such stringent policies for copyright that say, oh, if I shared my content, you should not be share or you should attribute. So why should it be any different when someone uses your image and likeness, right? And then shares this online without your consent? So I believe that the onus should be on consent. You did not consent to your likeness being used in that manner. And we see countries like Denmark, they are trying to give people copyright to their own likeness to fight deepfake, because it seems like that's one of the ways that we can tackle this. So on criminality, yes.
All right. And what about, the policies.
Yeah, the policies. So first of all, for platforms, there should be a total ban for sharing or non-consensual intimate images, deepfakes, using notifying apps, sextortion. So platforms should have that as their own enshrined policy.
Their community guidelines. Yeah.
Exactly. And we've seen where, because of pornography, the extent to which pornography is shared online, platforms are now trying to make sure that they check the ages of people who are sharing, using their platforms, maybe to say, okay, people of the same age should interact. So we know that platforms can do that. In terms of reporting, very important. Reporting should be fast. Not only should it be fast, but it should be taken seriously and not just left to AI to make the decision. So I think those are some policies that platforms can put in place.
Okay, so now let's look forward in the last 2 minutes that we have. In terms of practical steps for women and young girls to protect themselves from deepfake threats, account hijacking, from cyberstalking, again, putting so much weight and responsibility on the victims or potential victims to be the one who protect themselves versus having responsibility and the blame and the consequence lie on the perpetrators. We're trying to educate women and young girls on how to stay safe online. So now they're not only worried about walking around, they're not only not safe at home, not safe at school, not safe at religious organizations, not safe in the market, they're also not safe online. Just holding the phone in their hand can put them in danger. So Anita, what are the practical steps you think women and young girls can take to protect themselves online? And do we need to look at digital literacy, especially for women and girls? Is it even keeping up with the evolution of online threats?
So some practical steps you can take is to make sure that you enable two-factor authentication on all your devices and your platforms that you use. So meaning that your Twitter account, your Facebook account, your email, so platforms that can be used, especially that can be hijacked by people, you need to protect those. You should use strong, unique passwords. It's not easy to remember all these passwords, which is why people tend to use the same for multiple platforms, but then you can use a password manager. So I would also say you should regularly check up permissions, the permissions that an application has on your device. Remove unknown suspicious applications, okay? And anytime that a platform is asking you for a permission, make sure you read up to see what this permission entails. In terms of security now, your live location, you should guard that.
Yes.
So I wouldn't advise anybody to share their live location where they are, okay?
Yeah.
And then we have social media platforms like Snapchat that allow you to share, like, people can view to the nitty-gritty, like the building that you're in. So you should not activate precise location on your applications, and also don't share it like live. Against deepfake, sadly, when you see a deepfake by yourself, I would suggest you collect the evidence. So that includes the username of who shared it, the URL if you can, because they are going to delete that content eventually, the dates, the time. Take a screenshot or a screen record, maybe better actually, so that you can use this to file a claim if you do decide to go that route. And then most importantly, I would say you should tell someone that you trust. You shouldn't have to do this alone on your own. So tell a trusted person, a friend, an adult, and then you can also contact any help agency or women's rights agency that's by you.
Okay.
Yes, so very interesting conversation we're having, and I know that our audience too, they're learning quite a lot. So what legal reforms are urgently needed? You know, in Nigeria, we have a lot of legislation. Many people will tell you that we just want to see that some of this legislation are put into action. TFGBV in Nigeria, are there successful models from other countries that we can just, you know, borrow from or adapt into our own laws so that we can be better protected?
And Anita, because of time, let me just add, we know that AI tools are evolving every day. They're getting better, they're getting cleaner. Even this morning, Laura was talking about one, and Dashan had to tell her that it was AI generated. Yeah. So what does the next wave of TFGB look like if we do nothing? We have about just a minute and a half for you.
Okay, so I'm going to try and make everything very quick. I remember there was something about digital safety for digital literacy, right? Digital literacy for young girls, but I don't believe for only young girls. Young boys also. Everyone should be digitally literate. You should teach young ladies how to secure their accounts from scams, what consent means in digital spaces, how to respond, like we mentioned, and how to document and report abuse. In terms of legal reforms, we have the Cybercrimes Act in Nigeria, which already covers for cyberstalking, threats, and certain online abuses. They also have the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, right, which is against physical, sexual, psychological violence. So while we've not seen it being adapted to, you know, the online violence, I feel like psychological violence falls under this, that it can be used. In terms of urgence, we need to make sure that we keep up with the deepfakes, like you said. Some countries have already started working on AI reforms or AI policies. I mentioned Denmark trying to make sure that their citizens have the copyright of their image. And then we have the EU AI Act that is trying to make sure that every AI content is labeled as AI, so that people will not say this is real. Okay, so we need policies like that in Nigeria to say that if you release an AI content, first of all, it needs to be labeled as AI. Secondly, people should have their own copyright or something of the sort to their own image and likeness. That's going to probably take some time. But I believe if you start from labeling AI content, and then you have stringent rules in terms of what can be reported under our Cybersecurity Act.
Yeah. Anita, we really need to round up. Just finish up. Yes. We're so sorry because I know this conversation is something we're still going to keep having. Yeah. So I want to say thank you very much for opening our eyes to what is happening online. And as we close this conversation, it must be clear Digital world is not a separate realm, divorced from reality. It is real life, and violence in that space, whether via deepfakes, non-consensual sharing of images, stalking, doxing, or sextortion, inflicts real harm, trauma, shame, and danger. Technology-facilitated gender-based violence is not a niche issue. It touches millions. It undermines dignity, safety, and freedom, especially for women, girls, and vulnerable groups. But if it does not, it's inevitable. With stronger laws, responsive platforms, informed citizens, collective commitments, we can reclaim our digital spaces and make them safe. So that is all we can take today. Tomorrow, we'll be here with some more interesting conversation. Bye. For now.
Bye.